Hello, heathens. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to have a little chitty chat about man creatures. Before I dive in, let me tell you a bit about this piece. This is, of course, a portrait of my father. You may know him as Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler maybe, perhaps a tyrant with a bloody temper, or Romanian national hero, whatever it is you would like to call him. I just know him as my dear, sweet papa. So this, of course, is the man who inspired Bram Stoker's Dracula character. You may have heard of the book, perhaps. From what I understand, it is fairly well known, especially around spooky season, just a touch. You may be familiar with it. This portrait was created with ink, watercolor, and of course a smattering of glittery gel pens. I will of course have the links to the art supplies down below. Or I should say the names. I always do, you know that. The names will be listed down below, and if I have the links available, those will be there as well. So I posted this illustration over on Instagram, and I received a few comments which were all a variation of, cool, you're drawing men now, or nice to see you branching out, it looks good, etc., etc. So I thought, if I received a few people leaving me comments along this vein, I would guess that there may be a smidgen of interest in my discussing the topic in a video. So yes, ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between, I do indeed on occasion illustrate men. If you have been a part of this little freak show of mine for a lengthy stretch of time, whether here on YouTube, over on Facebook or Instagram, you are aware that yes, indeed, I do draw men, although it certainly isn't done with any frequency. For those of you who are fresh meat and may not be aware of my occasional penchant for scribbling boys, well, yes, indeed I do. And if you didn't know then, now you know. So this begs the question, why don't I draw men more often? The answer is painfully simple. It comes down to fashion. My illustrations are generally inspired by color and, of course, the F word, fashion. Without getting into boring discussions about gender spectrums and blah, 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 I simply think that in general, men's fashion just isn't as interesting. At least not anymore. If you were to send me back to the dandies of the 17th and 18th century, or back to the 1970s, my black heart would burst with love and adoration for men's fashion. In some instances, it was far more aesthetically appealing to me than women's fashion. But I digress. As the situation currently stands, when I begin illustrating a male, inevitably the amount of makeup, frills, and wiggetry that I conjure to make him visually palatable to me will simply take me down the road of illustrating yet another drag queen. I draw drag queens not too often, but I do it far more frequently than I draw the quote-unquote manly men, and I have definitely put some drag queens into my coloring books. So, that being said, why bother drawing quote-unquote manly men when they all end up with guy liner and Cuban heels anyway? I just don't see the point. The point I am trying to make is that while I do not draw men because I can't do it, or because I've never bothered to practice and lack the skill, my reasoning for not doing so is purely aesthetic. Succinctly, I'm not afraid to do it. I just don't wanna. So why is this even an important issue to discuss? Because one mistake that I see consistently across all forms of art, from amateurs to professionals, young artists, older artists, it doesn't matter. Just across all forms of art consistently, this is an issue, and that is that people tend to stick to one subject obsessively And due to lack of interest, they utterly disregard learning how to draw anything else, especially things that don't necessarily interest them. Now, this is an enormous hindrance to your art practice, so stop doing it. Now, I will not pretend that I am a master at drawing everything. I am a master at nothing. I've said it before. I'm a jack of all trades, but a master of absolutely nothing. If you ask me to draw a car or a baby, among other things, but those are the two that come to mind quickly. Ask me to draw either one of those things and watch me fail miserably. But, if I put my back into it, I can spit out a decent car or baby, not because I enjoy it, but because I have a decent enough grasp on illustration basics to be able to do so. In fact, I have illustrated both. Most recently in my comic book, and a few years ago, I did draw a few vintage cars, which turned out all right. I have to say, I did enjoy a couple of them. Now, just because I have no keen interest in either of these subjects, that doesn't mean that I shouldn't understand the fundamentals of illustration. Because if you understand the fundamentals, it will make you less afraid to take on projects or to pursue ideas that may be a little out of your comfort zone. You never know when you are going to need to apply these basic skills to a piece of artwork at some point. It's going to happen. Are you, for example, great at drawing women? Well, that's fantastic. But are you also decent at drawing men, children, the elderly, different body types, etc., etc.? The list can go on forever. If the answer is no, well, then you should get on that. I am, of course, not speaking to those who wish to exist solely within a hyper-specific niche. I am all for creating one singular style of art. I mean, have at it. Take, for example, brands such as Sanrio or Tokidoki and those little, what are those big-eyed, big-headed things called? Funko Pops. Those little no, they're not action figures, the figurines. Those things would look terrible. They would not be cohesive at all if the designers did not follow a strict set of artistic conventions. I am speaking to those who wish to establish a more fluid style, those who are interested in, say, portraits, whether they be semi-realistic or not, or even super cartoony, semi-realistic artwork. That's who I'm talking about. That is who this is directed towards. People who want a little bit of variety, but still want a level of realism, even if that realism is minuscule. We have all heard of illustrators who suffer from, what do they call it? Oh my God. Is it similar face? I think it's same face syndrome. We've all heard of this, right? And that is when every single figure that you draw has the exact same face, identical features, etc. The only things that might change will be the clothes, but the eyes are always the same, facial expression exactly the same. And it tends to be the same, from what I've noticed, it's huge, it's female specifically. Huge eyes, a teeny tiny little nose, and a teeny tiny little pouty mouth. Okay. It may be cute, but it gets a little boring. Now, I don't care how talented someone is. If every single set of eyes and lips looks the same, personally, I will immediately turn my head and instantly lose interest. Now, this aesthetic may speak to you, and that's wonderful. Different strokes for different folks, as they say. I love vanilla ice cream. Some people hate it. It's just one of those things. So you may be asking yourself then, well, if there is a market for artwork that looks the same, why bother mastering other things, Karla? Why are you being such a negative Nancy, Karla? Listen, don't get your panties in a twist, my combative little nasty. Just listen. I would bet you that in most cases, an artist who is technically correct in all other aspects of their work, or who can demonstrate a certain degree of technical know-how, but opts for intentional wonkiness in, say, anatomy, perspective, whatever it is, they definitely learned the rules of art before making a conscious decision to break them. I'm going to throw a household name at you for an example. Pablo Picasso. He learned the rules and broke them gloriously. Some would say grotesquely, but in any case, they are gloriously broken. In fact, he's often quoted as saying so. If you don't believe me, that's fine. Take a look at his early paintings. If you fall into the Picasso sucks, even I can do that camp, well, then I especially encourage you to, number one, look up those early paintings that I mentioned, and number two, try to replicate his Cubist style. Believe it or not, it takes a lot of skill to be able to distort and deconstruct the way that he did. A lot of skill. I'll put it another way, a much quicker, easier, just far more concise way. If you want to learn how to draw a werewolf, you must first learn to draw a wolf and a man to some degree. Now that makes sense, right? I think so. All right, my fiends, that is going to do it for today. I hope that you enjoyed watching and or listening to this little discussion. Let me know what you think of the piece, or let me know what your least favorite thing to draw is, or your favorite, whatever it is. Let me know down below. I would love to read your thoughts. That is going to do it for today. Everything you need to know will be down below. Join me on social media if you wish. Off I go. Be bad, be good. I don't really give a damn which, but find your way back in one piece. Get off your butt and make something today. All right? I especially encourage you to draw something that you hate drawing. Just try it. I will see you in the next one.